Call the member for Stretton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is my great pleasure to congratulate the Deputy Premier on the release of the State Infrastructure Plan. Released on 13 March, this plan lays out a new and groundbreaking strategic direction for the planning, investment and delivery of infrastructure in Queensland. It supports a capital spend across Queensland of over $35 billion over 4 years and includes the establishment of a new state infrastructure fund with an injection of $500 million to build the infrastructure needed to grow the economy and support jobs for Queenslanders. The Palaszczuk government has achieved all of this while maintaining operating surpluses across the forward estimates, projected levels of state growth of 4% this financial year and 4.5% next year, and creating lots of new jobs in the process, 50,000 new jobs since January 2015 alone. Unfortunately, Madam Deputy Speaker, this remarkable plan, the most complete whole-of-government infrastructure plan the state has ever seen, has predictably been criticised by the LNP, a party who achieved nothing of merit during their brief but eventful tenure that ended just over 1 year ago. Madam Deputy Speaker, before I go on, I want to pose this question. Who do you think is the biggest critic of the state infrastructure plan in this House? Any ideas? Yes, you guessed it, yet again, it's the architect of austerity, the member for Clayfield, who, as well as being the former Treasurer, is the current opposition infrastructure spokesman. In his criticism of the plan, the member for Clayfield has claimed it is recycled and that there is nothing new in it, despite the fact that $300 million has been committed to high-priority projects such as key upgrades for the Ipswich, Pacific and Gateway motorways. When the plan was released, the member for Clayfield also said, and I quote, "The government doesn't have a plan for infrastructure, it has a wish list." This is despite a firm commitment from this government of over $35 billion for infrastructure over the forward estimates, not a wish list, but a fully funded plan to deliver on key infrastructure projects. In contrast, Madam Deputy Speaker, let's see what the member for Clayfield did to support infrastructure in Queensland while he was the Treasurer. Madam Deputy Speaker, I think the House will find this very interesting indeed. As everyone knows, in 2012, the former Treasurer handed down the most ruthless budget in Queensland's history, and I've talked about that at length before. As well as sacking 14,000 workers and raising taxes to the tune of $600 million, his response to building the essential infrastructure Queenslanders need was to cut the capital program by $1.4 billion over the first 2 years. That was the considered response of the member for Clayfield and the LNP to cut the guts out of critical infrastructure funding, which had already been approved and planned in the 2011-12 state budget. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, it didn't stop there. The next year, as the member for Lockyer would know, the next year in the 2013-14 state budget, the member for Clayfield was at it again, further reducing general government capital purchases by almost $500 million when compared to the year before. And despite all these cuts, general government borrowing still increased by around $3.5 billion over the same period. So given these draconian and counterproductive cuts did nothing to reduce debt or stimulate growth, can anyone guess what the former Treasurer did to support the capital program the third time he had an opportunity, in the 2014-15 state budget? You guessed it, the member for Clayfield was at it again, further cutting capital purchases by almost $700 million from 2013-14 to 2014-15. However, this time there was a sweetener of sorts, or a bitter pill if you prefer. The LNP would be prepared to consider additional infrastructure funding of $8.6 billion, but only based on approval of the liquidation of $37 billion in highly profitable state assets. Unfortunately, no considered infrastructure plan was presented demonstrating how this $8.6 billion would be best spent. There was no detailed evidence-based process for prioritising key infrastructure projects, but instead we were presented with wild and irresponsible pork-barrelling election commitments. And today, where is the LNP's proposed state infrastructure plan?
Order. The member for Lockyer has already been warned under Standing Order 253A. I ask you to withdraw from the chamber for the remainder of this morning's session.
Thank you, Madam
Call the member Stretton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As I was saying, where is the LNP's proposed state infrastructure plan? When will the member for Clayfield table this document to the Parliament for an alternative vision for Queensland? Madam Deputy Speaker, no LNP infrastructure plan has been tabled because the LNP doesn't have a plan except to cut if they were to return to power. That is always their solution to everything. Madam Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, I say this to the opposition. Rather than criticising us for no reason, accept the hopeless failures of your own administration, learn from the government's economic successes over the last 12 months and work constructively with us to build a better Queensland. Madam Deputy Speaker, as I've said before, you can't just cut your way to prosperity. You actually have to have a plan for stimulating the economy and going for growth so that everybody can share in the economic benefits. And the state
Member's time has expired. I call a member